They can hear, right? We're still in?
Yeah, you can hear.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Buenas tardes, buenas noches a todos. Good evening, everyone. So let's begin with the prayer, the parish prayer. I think I did this in Spanish last time, so creo que empezamos en español la primera vez, o pues esta vez en inglés. Pero la oración parroquial, en nombre del Padre y del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo. Amen. God of all goodness, you have called us from the corners of the earth in order to form this community of faith in Chicago. You have blessed us with a living faith, so that our faithless world may come to know you. Make us generous toward those who hunger, compassionate to those who suffer abuse, kind toward immigrants and refugees, merciful to those who sin against you. May we be true disciples of your Son, faithful stewards of your grace, evangelizers that are strengthened by the gifts of your Holy Spirit, that our petitions may bear much fruit and give glory to your holy name. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Okay, are we on here? You got that?
I'm pointing at you right now.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, but I don't need to be there. So, no, that's fine. If you could share the screen, we're going to give a very quick overview. Vamos a pasar rápidamente por las opciones y algunas cosas de este. So we're going to give a very quick overview. Share screen here. So you have it. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So again, the scenarios are meant to be ideas that we bring forward, and the committee of 20 people working on this will ultimately kind of gather together and make a presentation as to why these scenarios or this scenario should be the one we go with. So estos escenarios son esenciales solamente, y el comité de 20 personas de las diferentes parroquias van a reunir para hacer una presentación al cardenal, porque esa es la opción que pensamos es buena para todos nosotros, ¿ok? Y también, simplemente, notas de clarificación, some ideas for clarification. When parishes, we talk about parishes and churches. Parishes are the community of people and the formal gathering of a group of people to worship. And a church is what we're referring to only as the church building in this case. Okay, or the church building, and of course like church offices and things like that. So there's buildings and there's parishes. Okay. So en este momento vamos a hablar de diferentes cosas. So las iglesias son las parroquias. Y estamos hablando de las parroquias en este momento. Y esa es la comunidad de la gente, ¿sí? Otra cosa son los templos. Cada parroquia tiene un templo en que ellos tienen su adoración, sus misas y todo eso. Y también hay otros edificios. Vamos a hablar de esto separado. So, cuando usamos la palabra templo es para el templo, y cuando hablamos de la parroquia o de la iglesia es de la comunidad. Okay. Y rapidly again, just to give you an idea, in terms of, and I'm going to go to bigger numbers here, these are the 4 parishes: St. Edward, Immaculate Heart of Mary, Our Lady of Mercy is in the 3rd column, and Resurrection. So, una idea de las cosas que estamos hablando es, esas son las 4 parroquias: San Eduardo, Inmaculado Corazón de María, Nuestra Señora de la Merced es el tercer grupo de numerales, y Resurrección. So, más grande, a little bit bigger so everybody can see. October counts. One of the things, 2 things that you'll notice is our October count, which is the top line from the most recent year, is much bigger than everyone else's. Second thing you'll notice, if you can do your numbers very quickly, is that you'll notice that in terms of the going down, because October count, the number of people coming to Mass has gone down everywhere. Ours has gone down less than in other parishes in our grouping and across the Archdiocese. Dos cosas que quisiera mencionar en los asistentes de las misas. La primera línea es el número de las misas más corriente del año pasado, y puede ver rápidamente que la Merced es la más grande por mucho de las otras parroquias. Que nosotros tenemos más fieles la iglesia de aquí que las otras que asisten a las misas. También, si puede sumar rápidamente, puede encontrar que en esas parroquias todos están bajando en el número de los asistentes a las misas, pero la Merced se baja menos que las otras parroquias y menos del promedio de la arquidiócesis también. También abajo es el porcentaje entre las misas en cualquier idioma. So, de la gente que asistan por nosotros, 75% de la gente que asisten a las misas asisten a las misas en español y 25% en inglés. Y las otras parroquias, Resurrección tiene un porcentaje más grande de hispanos y San Eduardo no tiene ningún hispano. So, cada parroquia tiene eso. So, and you'll see that the percentages, we have 75% of our people attend Mass in Spanish, 25% attend Mass in English. That doesn't mean that they speak English or Spanish, because some people go to Mass in a different language. But you'll notice that the Resurrection is 82% is more Hispanic than we are, and St. Edward doesn't have any Hispanics, doesn't have Spanish Mass, so they don't show anybody going to Mass in Spanish. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people who speak Spanish there, they just don't have a Mass in Spanish. So, estas son la ayuda y también los ingresos de las parroquias o las necesidades de las parroquias. So, en la primera línea es los ingresos aparte de la renta, y la segunda línea es la renta que recibe cada parroquia, San Eduardo no reciben, y finalmente los ingresos totales. Y abajo es las necesidades, según la arquidiócesis, de examinar los edificios. ¿Cuál es el costo de reparar los edificios, las reparaciones necesarias? So, también puede ver en la tercera columna que la Merced tiene lo menos de las reparaciones necesarias y la Resurrección tiene lo más, y cada uno tiene diferentes numerales, pero nosotros es bajo de los otros. So, in the third, this column we have, or in this graph we have, the first one is the income of the parish apart from rent. And you'll notice that, again, Our Lady of Mercy in the third column has the most in terms of parish income coming in through collections and other forms of money coming in. And each of them have a different number there. The goal of the Archdiocese is $750,000 per year. So of the 4 parishes, we're the only one who meet that goal. La meta de la arquidiócesis en los ingresos es $750,000 por año en ingresos, y nosotros somos la única parroquia en este grupo que tiene que sobrepasa esa meta. And then the other number, so that the next one is the rent, and you'll notice that St. Edward doesn't get rent, the other parishes each get different forms of rent from their schools. And then, so the total income below, and then finally the repairs that need to be made. So after examining the various buildings, they take an estimate of what they think necessary repairs have to be made in each of the parishes. And again, you'll see that Our Lady of Mercy has the least amount of repairs that need to be made. Resurrection has the most, and each parish has a different amount. And again, those are estimates based on the Archdiocese. So we want to get to the groupings. And I've got these in both English and Spanish, so you'll see the slide repeat. So this is grouping number 1. En los escenarios o posibilidades, yo tengo en dos gráficos para cada en cualquier idioma. So, primero, el escenario 1 es de tener 3 parroquias de los 4 y de unir Inmaculado Corazón con Resurrección, y las otras 2 quedan así. So, first one is to have IHM and Resurrection grouped together as a new parish, and then the other 2 parishes stay as they are. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is to put IHM, Resurrection, and St. Edward together as a single large parish and leave Our Lady of Mercy alone as it is. Escenario 2 es de tener San Eduardo, Inmaculado Corazón y Resurrección como una parroquia, y la Merced manténgase como es. Escenario 3 es de tener dos parroquias, pero de usar dos iglesias, dos templos en una de las parroquias. So, de unir, en este escenario es de unir Immaculate Heart of Mary Resurrection with Our Lady of Mercy, leave St. Edward by themselves, and then you might have mass in two different churches in that scenario. En ese escenario es de unir San Eduardo, de San Eduardo queda como es, y de unir Inmaculado Corazón y Resurrección con la Merced, y de tener misas en dos templos. Eso es lo mismo. I think I said that in English, right? So, going to scenario number 4, and that is to put. Is that the same as the previous? Sorry. Okay. Here we go. No. Let's go back. So the next scenario is to have 2 parishes, and it could be 2 or 3 churches. And this would be to unite St. Edward and Resurrection, and then also to unite IHM to Our Lady of Mercy. And the 2 churches, when we talk about possibly 3 churches, would be to have Resurrection stay open as a worship site along with St. Edward's, and they would run 2 churches because of the Spanish-English languages, Resurrection being predominantly Hispanic and Edward's not having any Spanish masses. En este escenario es de unir San Eduardo y Resurrección y de tener misas en 2 templos, simplemente porque la gente de Resurrección es más que todo es hispana y no hay misas en español a San Eduardo en este momento. Y también de unir a Inmaculado Corazón con la Merced. So it's the same. And then the next one is to unite all 4 parishes into one big parish. And masses could be happening at either 2 or 3 of the churches then. And that would probably be Resurrection, St. Edward, and Our Lady of Mercy would be 3 churches where the masses would be happening. Este escenario es de unir todas las parroquias, de formar una nueva parroquia grande y de tener misas en probablemente 2 o 3 templos. Por ejemplo, San Eduardo, la Merced y probablemente Resurrección, algo como así. So, and then this is the scenario. Oops, that's the same one. Sorry. And then this is the scenario that we added to it from the original grouping, which is to put Resurrection to Our Lady of Mercy and the Immaculate Heart of Mary to St. Edward's, because they're closer together, basically, is how we work that out. And the Immaculate Heart of Mary is a higher percentage of English speaking compared to Resurrection, which is a significantly, it's 83% Spanish speaking. So, este escenario es de tener 2 parroquias, de unir Inmaculado Corazón con San Eduardo, porque están juntos, más juntos, y también Inmaculado Corazón tiene más gente que habla en inglés, y San Eduardo tiene misa solamente en inglés, y de unir Resurrección con la Merced, porque la Resurrección, 83% de la gente asiste a las misas en español. So, estos son los escenarios. Yo voy a poner aquí un gráfico de todos que puede ver. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options. So I put all the options up here on the map form. Option 1, 2, 3, 4 is along the top for those on Zoom, and 5, 6, 7 is along the bottom. At that point, I'm done, right? Ya, y necesitamos escuchar de ustedes. So we want to hear from you at this point. And we'll pull up the people on Zoom so we can see you as well. But we'll keep the map up there for you. So los que están en Zoom ya tienen la mapa, y por favor de subir la mano, usar los característicos abajo para subir la mano, y Susie va a avisarme cuando quiere decir algo. So if you want to say something on Zoom, raise your hand and Susie will let you know that you're going to ask a question. Y de aquí, por favor, de there.
Just, if you're here, ask. Raise your hand or something, ask. And you've got 5 committee people right here, and they're going to give you the answers. Because I try to do as talking as possible at those meetings.
You got a question for Kathy?
Kathy? Zoom?
Yeah, it's actually Mike, but Kathy's here nearby. Hi, everybody. Good to see all of you. And thanks to the committee and Father Nick for all the work too. Kathy and I put something together, and I did put it in writing to send to the committee and to Father Nick, so hopefully you'll get it. But I just like to briefly share our thoughts. Our first thought, and what we believe is our most important thought, is that the committee strongly recommend to the Cardinal that he chooses one of these scenarios and not come up with an 8th scenario that was not recommended by the committee. This has happened in several parishes, and that has rightfully led to a distrust of this process and a sense that all this committee work is just for show and is not taken seriously by the Cardinal. So our first suggestion is that the committee strongly recommend that he choose one of these 7 and not come up with another one. It has led to a lot of bad feeling in a lot of other places. We believe the committee's work is crucial and that its goal is to help the Cardinal serve all the people in our area. Our second thought is that we recommend the committee not choose either scenario 1 or scenario 6. As far as scenario 1, we believe, based on our study of other areas, that there's virtually no chance the Cardinal is going to allow 3 parishes to remain open. And we think that choosing this option will make it easy for the Cardinal to discount the committee's work and bypass the committee and choose his own plan. We just don't think there's any chance that he's really going to leave 3 of these places open. Regarding option 6, which is the merging of all 4 parishes into one, we think this is the worst possible option for our area parishes. No matter what option's chosen, there's going to be sorrow and difficulty as we all adjust to major change as different parish cultures try to come together. But we believe to ask 4 parishes to become one, whatever its financial advantages, is to risk asking all of us to take on more than is reasonable to handle. It's hard enough to merge 2 or 3 parishes into one. We think it's beyond reasonable to ask 4 parish cultures to do that at the same time. In addition, whether the priest involved be Father Nick, one of the other current pastors, or a brand new pastor, asking any priest to take on this huge of a pastoral load, both in terms of the number of people to serve and in terms of the delicate process of trying to deal with the massive adjustment of 4 different groups of parishioners, is a recipe for disaster for both priest and people. It is simply asking too much. Finally, while we consider any of the other scenarios acceptable, we most recommend scenario 7, which I believe was Ben's proposal. 2 parishes make sense to us because although that still involves the struggle of adjustment, the scale of that community, 2 communities uniting to 2 different parishes with 2 pastors, seems to us clearly the most manageable. It also seems most likely to allow both St. Ed's and OLM to continue to flourish, while we believe that trying to put three parishes together and leaving St. Ed's alone would ultimately probably lead to Ed's closing in a few years down the road. And culturally, as already has been mentioned, we think it would be a smoother transition to unite Resurrection, a strongly Hispanic parish, with OLM, and to link IHM to St. Ed's. So that's our 2 cents. Thanks for listening. And if I could impose upon Father Nick or somebody to translate that as loosely as best as possible, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, vamos a tratar de yo or de ustedes.
Okay, primeramente, Mike dijo que su sugerencia al comité es de pedir al cardenal de elegir una de las opciones y no de hacer otra opción, porque decir al comité o a la gente que el trabajo del comité no significa nada, por eso de elegir uno de estos. Segundo, ellos mencionaron que Ellos piensan que es mejor de no aceptar escenario 1 ni escenario 6. Escenario 1 porque what was number one? What was number one?
I just don't think that the cardinal is going to, given the financial situation of the parish, is going to do 3.
Right. So escenario 1 porque él piensa que el cardenal no va a aceptar de mantener 3 parroquias en este grupo. O sea, con número 6 es porque es bien grande, es imposible de unir tanta gente y formar una parroquia, es muy difícil de hacer. So, esa es la opinión de los escenarios. Ellos sugieren de aceptar o de presentar escenario 7 porque es lo más razonable para unir las comunidades de resurrección a la Merced y la corazón con San Eduardo y para mantener San Eduardo por sí mismo, poner San Eduardo en peligro de cerrar en el futuro, muy pronto en el futuro, pero puede ayudar a San Eduardo si tiene también un corazón y nosotros con resurrección. So I think that's the most, más que todo es de reconocer las dificultades de hacer ese proceso y el sufrimiento de mucha gente y también la desesperanza de mucha gente de participar en un proceso y de recibir otro escenario, otra decisión de la cardenal. Okay, I think I got most of it right. Escenario 7. Finalmente, yes. Okay. Aquí or acá?
Well, she was ready.
Who?
Teresa.
Teresa.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, Nick, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. If I'm understanding correctly, last time you mentioned, I believe you mentioned, or was it Ben, that Our Lady of Mercy met all the goals. So why is it Our Lady of Mercy put in this situation? Why? I mean, I prefer the scenario, leave Our Lady of Mercy alone, and combine the other churches. Like Resurrection, I heard the other scenario, but we have a big Spanish community. Are we foreseeing the problems that, not that I'm saying, no, let's, close our doors, obviously not, but what are the problems that might come up with another, more Spanish? I mean, we have a big Spanish community, but adding more, it's going to cause more problems as far as crowdness. Probably have to add more masses. Is this something that Our Lady of Mercy will be able to handle? I just don't understand why Our Lady of Mercy is being put into merging with other churches if we meet the goals.
Okay, so su cuestión es por qué la Merced, si la Merced sobrepasa todos los métodos, por qué necesitamos participar, de incluir más gente, especialmente apresar más hispanos. Vamos a tener mucha más gente y hay muchos hombres que no pueden contener el templo o necesitamos más listos, algo como así.
That's a good question, and I'm going to take a stab at answering that because it is something that we considered. There's certainly a temptation to vote for a scenario, or vote is the wrong word, to push for a scenario from our perspective where Our Lady of Mercy stays as is. But there are some sort of complicating circumstances there. Just because a parish is joined to another doesn't mean that the people from the parish that's been closed will go to the parish to which they're assigned. And so there was the thought that we would get a lot of the same people regardless of how the scenarios shook out, just because of geography. We're closer to both Immaculate Heart of Mary and Resurrection. Parish is probably most in danger of closing than St. Edward's is. And because we have an existing and robust Spanish ministries, that we would get more of the people from closed parishes, again, regardless of the scenario. The other thought was if, when parishes are joined, then the assets from the closed parish become part of the parish to which it's joined. So if we're going to take on a lot of the people, then we can also benefit from the fixed assets that could help strengthen the parish and become a source of revenue to help continue to fund our ministries. And then, let's see, I'm trying to think if are there any other thoughts on that I can?
There's also the underlying thing that this is not supposed to be a competition that results in winners and losers. This is supposed to be something that will provide a stable future for all of the Catholics, not Catholic institutions, but for all of the Catholics involved. Thinking of communities that way. And if Our Lady of Mercy just stays alone, you have two already unstable parishes, plus one that is marginal and short of most of the requirements, with absolutely no Spanish language ministry. And there's a good chance that to do that would sink St. Edmund, that the change would overwhelm the institution.
And also going back to her question, that is something that I always ask myself too. Why if we are in the top ones? But unfortunately, this is not only for few churches, it's for all the churches around Chicago. Don't feel bad because we were selected. We have to be, even though we know that primero Dios no vamos a cerrar. Entonces, esa es una pregunta que yo siempre me hice y hacía un pleito, ¿por qué nosotros, si nosotros llevamos a la categoría que estamos esperando, porque tenemos que ser seleccionadas? Pero nosotros, desafortunadamente, tenemos que estar ahí adentro porque somos parte de la iglesia, somos en el área de Chicago. Entonces, no es que hayamos sido seleccionados, sino que todas las iglesias están participando. Incluso una de las preguntas que yo hice, un poquito irónica, ¿y qué pasa con la catedral cuando a ellos les tocó también fueron? ¿Y qué me dijo Padre? Sí. Entonces, no es porque nos quieran cerrar, sino que desafortunadamente es porque somos parte del proceso de todas las iglesias.
¿Alguien va a traducir?
Okay. I know we're here to listen to some of the concerns, and we're not happy what's going on right now, but we're not sure if Our Lady of Mercy is going to stay open too. They can close us too. So this is not a voting situation. We're here to listen to each other and work together as a church. So, no sabemos si nuestra ciudad de Merced puede ser cerrada también. También nos puede tocar que si la cierran, ¿verdad? Y unirnos con otra parroquia, puede ser con San Eduardo o con la colaboración de María. También estamos en un columpio que nos podemos caer o nos pueden tirar, ¿verdad? La decisión no es de nosotros, ni del comité, ni de nosotros los aquí reunidos, sino que cómo vamos a trabajar como comunidad. I mean, we're not sure, and we're here to just listen to complaints and thoughts.
De acuerdo a la pregunta que hizo Teresa, ella preguntó acerca de que por qué si nosotros estamos en buena posición, por qué nosotros estamos y por qué no dejamos que las otras comunidades arreglen su situación y todo, pero ya ven, nos dijo en inglés de que ciertas cosas, para Pedro que Gabriel dijo que nosotros también somos obligados a participar dentro de este proceso por orden de que somos parte de la Arquidiócesis de Chicago. Entonces, en este aspecto, pues, lo que pasa es esto, que como Ben dijo en inglés, si nosotros nos quedamos solos y las otras 3 iglesias se unen, toda la economía, o por si se cierra una de esas iglesias, la economía de la venta de esas iglesias va a llegar a esas iglesias nomás, a San Edward y a eso. Entonces las personas que ya no deciden, porque nosotros podemos unir iglesias, pero no vamos a jalar a la gente a la fuerza, no agarrar un bus. Todo lo de resurrección va a llegar un bus, 5 buses, 10 buses, y tenemos que ir a la misa a San Edward o a aquel lugar. Entonces la gente toma la decisión de ir a donde ellos quieren. Y posiblemente se nos vengan a nosotros aquí y nosotros vamos a tener mucha mayor gente. Y no vamos a tener parqueo para ellos y tantas cosas que ellos van a necesitar. Entonces esa es la razón por la cual nosotros también tenemos que ser parte de unirnos con otra iglesia por si en caso nosotros nos unimos a Resurrección, como decían en la opción 7, si en el futuro vemos que Resurrección no se puede mantener por sí sola, se vende el edificio de Resurrección y ese dinero o ese assessment viene a nosotros y nos ayudaría a nosotros a trabajar juntos con la gente de Resurrección que se quedó sin iglesia y los ministerios se quedarían más fuertes para nuestra comunidad. Esa es la razón por la cual tenemos que ser parte de esta unión nosotros también.
Okay, hopefully that helped, Teresa. Well, yeah, he was repeating what Ben was saying. I'm sorry.
And Ramonito, you were next, I think?
Yeah, I want to say that I'm in agreement with 7-1. I no longer live in this community, where I lived here for almost 25 years. And it has changed. And I've seen different people coming into the neighborhood. I'm not seeing them enter our doors. And we do need people to enter our doors, whatever nationality comes in. We're one brothers and sisters of God. And we need to serve everybody that comes into Our Lady of Mercy. Thank you, committee, because the Senate involves Resurrection coming in with us, right? Is that, I'm hoping that the first question you'll ask them, what they're thinking. On my behalf, tell them that I welcome them with open arms, if that's the scenario that's picked. And anybody else in the parishes, because we don't know what's going to happen. That'll be for St. Edward's and the other one. I mean, we have to welcome everyone, no matter what nationality. The Catholic faith and the people have to grow because this world needs more Catholic. That's all.
Un momento, so ellos están de acuerdo con la opción 7 y vivía aquí en ese vecindario de 25 años, pero vive de aquí en este momento. Pero fíjense que opción 7, porque ese vecindario ha cambiado mucho y no ve tanta gente de los nuevos que vienen aquí y pasan por la puerta y necesitamos invitar a participar en nuestra situación, más o menos.
Yo también siento que el escenario 7, como decía Mike, estoy de acuerdo. Y otra cosa, que pienso que usted, el padre de aquí, se tiene que quedar aquí. Ya si viene otro proceso asesor que esté junto con usted, pues vamos a ver también, ¿verdad? Pero el padre Rick se queda en la Merced, porque la Merced siento yo que está más, estamos, gracias a Dios, que estamos un poco mejor, ¿verdad? Tenemos más ministerios, gracias a las personas que siempre están contribuyendo a los ministerios. Aquí, la Merced es una escuela donde, gracias a Dios, no es que nosotros seamos maestros nada, pero la Merced siempre se ha identificado en otras comunidades como una escuela
donde hay ministerios buenos y el número 7 creo que sería lo ideal. Pero que el Padre Lee se quede, nunca se vaya a otro lado. Y los que trabajan también acá.
So, very quickly, in terms of translation, she's also in agreement with number 7. She thinks that's the ideal scenario in terms of grouping together people. She would love me to stay here. That's not, you know, that's not on the table one way or the other. But the other was that Our Lady of Mercy has always been a teacher, how she put it, to teach other, not just for ourselves, but in other areas, other places, ministries have grown because of the ministries we have here. And so scenario 7 help us maintain our ministries, help us grow our ministries, and also be an example for others. I think Charles is next, is that right? Yeah, I mentioned that.
Just, it always surprises me when I hear myself on the microphone. Just to help ground our thinking going forward and also ground our discussion tonight, it is useful to reflect that what happened in the parish beginning around 1977 when this Pastor Ryan, for whom this hall was named, invited Karen Pettis to bring her Pasita and her prayer group fully into the parish. And that in a way was the beginning of the Spanish language ministry. And the growth of that ministry are the ministries for the Spanish speaking, but also the ministries that grew out of that community, grew geometrically, you know, where there was 1 and there was 10. And within a couple of years, one could say that the Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters in this parish were a significant part of the population. At the same time, the Filipino community, as well as people from other countries in Asia, like Vietnam and Japan, were also present in the parish, helping to be welcoming and helping to expand their vision. I draw attention to this history to emphasize that without realizing it, we grew into a charism of hospitality and welcoming, and as says, of teaching, not teaching about Christ, but also how to be with Christ. And so it's no big surprise that we find ourselves in a situation where, however we will be called in the end, this charism will be the mode of our work going forward. And it will be work. People who speak Spanish come from 20 or 30 countries, from the Caribbean, from the tip of South America, here in Antarctica. There are Spanish-speaking people that have been in the Southwest United States for 400 years. So people come speaking this one language or dialects of this one language, but with different outlooks that all have to become part of a community. And I think we are gifted for that. And I think Marlene was reflecting this. Our mission statement has a phrase that goes something that we come from everywhere to this one place. And as it turns out, everywhere is just down the street within walking distance. So here we are.
Anybody else want to translate it?
Oh.
You want to One of the ustedes, ¿no? So, quisiera, él mencionó que también, de acuerdo con la hermanita, que quisiera mencionar que en 77 empezó, fue por la invitación del padre Arturo, la renovación carismática, el grupo de carismáticos de participar plenamente en la iglesia aquí, y ese era el comienzo de del ministerio hispano aquí. Y también en esos días, en esos años, agrandó la comunidad filipina, también con personas de otros países de Asia, de Japón y de Vietnam. Y hay comunidades de diferentes áreas. Y la comunidad hispana, que decimos la comunidad hispana, pero representa culturas, de muchas culturas, diferentes culturas, del más sur de Sudamérica hasta el sureste de los Estados Unidos, donde estaba hablando español hace 400 años. Hay muchas diferentes culturas que están representadas en la cultura hispana. Y también nosotros empezamos un ministerio de bienvenida a todos. Y forman otros ministerios, como Mercedes mencionó, que hay muchos ministerios que nosotros tenemos, vienen de todo este ministerio, este carisma de bienvenida, de dar la bienvenida a todos. Y ese es algo que nosotros estamos llamando de continuar, ese carisma de dar la bienvenida a todos. Y es por eso estamos participando en este proceso de renuevo en mi iglesia. I think I got most of that, Charles. Okay, I did. Okay. Questions, preguntas? ¿Tú tienes?
Sí.
¿Bien?
Así como ella dijo, que para qué aceptamos otras iglesias si esta iglesia es suficiente grande, pero yo digo que deberíamos de estar con una parte orgullosos, que vamos a abrirle a la gente la iglesia porque Dios nos abre el corazón a todos y uno debe de recibirlos con amor y sentir uno orgulloso de que uno va a ser el que va a recibir, no que nosotros vamos a ir a buscar. Y yo digo que uno debe de ser comprensible en eso y recibirlos con amor y todo, porque uno no sabe si el día de mañana uno va a estar necesitado también, que ojalá no, ¿verdad? Pero yo digo que es un orgullo de la Merced que va a recibir otros templos aquí. Gracias.
¿Quieres para usted? Tú puedes hablar.
Oh my God. Okay, let me see if you understand my English, because sometimes
Your English is
I
fine.
don't understand myself. I said that we're supposed to be happy and proud of us that we want to receive another churches, because we're so lucky that people are coming to us, and the church is the heart of God, that we can take everybody with love and understand. And maybe tomorrow we're going to be looking for a coconut, but we never know what is coming tomorrow. And we're supposed to be glad that people are coming here. And I'm so lucky and proud that Father Nick is here, and he's a wonderful father. Thank you.
Here's the $5.
Tomorrow.
Alfredo de Zoom. Cortes, Alfredo Cortes. Tu micrófono.
Ok, ya, listo. Buenas noches a todos. Yo principalmente pues quiero darle las gracias a todas las personas las que están ahí, principalmente las que están al frente representando a la comunidad. Todo se me hace muy bien como está pasando. Yo solamente quiero compartirles. Yo vivo a media cuadra de donde está Resurrección. Y me ha tocado platicar con gente que pertenece ahí a Resurrección. Ellos también están trabajando duro, están trabajando fuerte. Ellos quieren que su comunidad permanezca abierta. Ellos todavía tienen están buscando esa iniciativa o esa manera de que se les mande un sacerdote a la comunidad. Están dispuestos a dialogar, están dispuestos a todo, pero me han comentado que a ellos les gustaría que su iglesia se permaneciera abierta y siguiera. Dice que están dispuestos al diálogo y todo. Me ha tocado compartir con ellos, al igual que acá con nosotros. Yo les he dicho que pues nos estamos dispuestos al diálogo también y pues a ver qué es lo que va a pasar con nuestras comunidades. pero que debemos estar abiertos a lo que Dios nos ponga y a lo que estemos dispuestos a hacer cada quien por nuestras comunidades. Porque la verdad no es fácil, la comunidad es grande y a veces es muy poca gente la que está ahí o los que estamos dispuestos a hacer algo por nuestras comunidades. Y a veces pues es muy desgastante y pues por lo menos el tiempo y las necesidades de las parroquias pues son muchas. Esperemos que todo esto se solucione bien para el bien de la comunidad. Lo que vi yo aquí pues está trabajando fuerte también, pero pues están abiertos y dispuestos a dialogar también. Era lo que yo quería compartir.
Lo que Alfredo está diciendo es de que él vive a un bloque y medio aproximadamente. What Alfredo was telling us that he is close to a resurrection, and he understands that they are kind of upset as we are, as everybody, that they want to work, but the problem is that they are working on the last minute, and they are like fighting, and then we can see when we are together, and they are trying to do the best. And because they don't want to be close. And who wants to be close? Nobody, right? Do we want to be close? No, right? Okay. What else? I think this is the most important thing that you said.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
And just at that last meeting, I think it was finally beginning to dawn on some of the different people in the groups that the numbers don't add up, you know, in terms of how many people are coming or how many people have left and how much money is coming in and how much is owed. So, una cosa que finalmente en la última reunión empezó de estar claro que, de iluminar la mente que los números del dinero o de los asistentes no suma de mantener abierta esa parroquia o cualquier parroquia. So, es una decisión difícil y están mirando a los números y entienden. So they're looking at the numbers and finally they're thinking, oh, yes. Okay, Maria. Susie. Oh, Susie, yes, sir. Susie, no. Teresa. Okay.
Yes, hi, Father. I have another question, and I'm just trying to, these are just questions because I'm just seeing how people might react, like I'm against the merging or not. But do we know when the decision is going to be made? And if so, let's say, is the decision a final, or can any church appeal? Or do we know any kind of situation like this where other churches merge and what the outcome was, so we can learn of things to expect and be ready or prepared to say, okay, it happened with this church and these were the issues and this is how they handled it. So we know, or I guess a group can be ready to say, we're prepared and these are the scenarios we'll take.
Okay, unas preguntas. Primero, ¿sabemos cuándo va a ser la decisión? Segundo, si esa decisión es final o podemos pedir por misericordia. Y si esa es la decisión, si necesitamos unir con otra parroquia unirse con nosotros, sabemos en otros grupos que sufrieron lo mismo y que podemos usar su experiencia de aprender y cuáles son los pasos que necesitamos hacer para tener éxito en esto. So, Teresa, you wanted to go on.
all the answers. Otherwise, I mean, this one's right up my alley. I've done it 3 times.
The scenario that will be selected will be announced sometime later this year. The process is compressed, it's moving very quickly. La decisión será anunciada probablemente al fin de diciembre. Los resultados se llevará a cabo el primer día de julio del año que viene. The decision will take effect on July 1st of next year. El proceso se mueve muy rápidamente, ¿verdad? I mean, it's moving really fast. This is happening in various other places. We are the fourth wave. Somos parte de la cuarta agrupación de parroquias. La cuarta onda se llama. And we know that in some places there has been anger. En varios lugares hay enojo. In other places it has worked. Never completely and easily, but it functions. Okay? En otros lugares la decisión resulta en el bien, con desafíos, pero funciona. There is no right to appeal. Después de la decisión, podemos avisar al cardenal. We can give the cardinal advice. That's what this is for. It goes to him through 3 other committees. Okay? Nuestras recomendaciones y comentarios se pasarán por 3 comités más, eventualmente al cardenal. Through 3 more committees and eventually to the cardinal. El arzobispo tomará la decisión final y él solito. The Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Chicago will make the final decision, and he alone. That's that. Okay? Father Nick phrased the appeal in Spanish. Can we ask for mercy? And, no, we are mercy. And we'll be here. We'll be here. The question is, what are we going to look like?
Actually, we can appeal. Everyone who's appealed is lost. Just so you know. So you can always appeal to Rome. Rome has turned down every case that has come before them in this process. Just be clear. So sí se puede apelar a Roma, pero Roma ha decidido en favor del cardenal en cada caso en este proceso. Pues en otros lugares, si el proceso no es correcto, Roma interviene, pero este proceso está según las reglas de la Iglesia Católica, pues no hay necesidad por Roma de intervenir. So, in other places where the processes aren't correctly done according to canon law, Rome has changed the decision. However, because this process is being done according to canon law, Rome would find no reason to intervene, and anybody who's gone up to Rome so far has lost their appeal. Just to give that. And then finally, the experience question which you brought up. I've been involved in 3 different mergers of parishes, closing parishes and merging parishes. So I have a lot of experience personally in what goes wrong, what goes right, and how to try and make it go right. Which I will try to do if I'm the leader. Well, even before, because even the change won't happen until July 1st. So the time between the decision is made and the decision is implemented, I will certainly do everything I can to guide our community to do what we need to do. So, and that, that is based on my experience. And also currently as Dean, I'm now working with the groupings before us and trying to put out the fires that come up every now and again and help them see through the process so that they can move forward. So I would say probably of most of the priests in the diocese, I have more experience in closing places other than people who actually decide that they're closing. But it's not something I wanted to do, it's just something that happens at times. So, de la experiencia de ayudar a la gente por los pasos, yo tengo mucha experiencia en esto porque he envuelto en 3 veces de cerrar una parroquia, de unir una parroquia. So, este es algo que yo tengo mucha experiencia de los pasos, de los difíciles, dificultades y también cómo ayudar a la gente. Entre la decisión anunciada y implementada, yo voy a hacer todo para ayudar a la comunidad de hacer lo que es bueno para implementar la decisión. Para el futuro necesitamos esperar la decisión porque ellos también van a anunciar, después de anunciar la decisión, 2 meses después van a anunciar quiénes son los párrocos de las parroquias. So, todo está inseguro para mí también. Pero esa es parte que yo voy a ayudar hasta el último momento. Si no quedo aquí, voy a ayudarles hasta el momento cuando hay nuevo párroco. Si quedo aquí, yo voy a quedar aquí también. So, depende del cardenal. Todo esto depende del cardenal, sí. So, just to repeat that last part. So, the decision is announced probably in January, maybe February, but probably in January, and then implemented in July. But the pastor, whoever's going to be the pastor of the decision, isn't announced until March or so. So, and then of course that doesn't happen until July 1st. So whether or not I'm the pastor, we won't know until March because those decisions are done separately from the decision about what the parish is going to look like. But whether I'm the pastor or not, certainly I'm going to help the parish all the way through till the decision is implemented, and if I am the pastor, then I will continue on doing everything I can to make the decision work well. So, I hope that helps. Maria, see?
Well, on one hand, I don't want to be selfish. I would like to keep our relationship the way it is, working very well. On the other hand, as Christians, as Catholics, we have to have an open heart and help people in need. Our brothers and sisters are looking for a spiritual place to belong to. And remember the name of our church, Our Lady of Mercy. So let's put in practice. Pienso de una manera, por un lado, de que no quiero ser egoísta, pero me encantaría mantener la iglesia de Nuestra Señora de Merced como está, una iglesia triunfante, una iglesia que está llena. Sin embargo, como católicos y como seres humanos, y tenemos que honrar el nombre de nuestra parroquia. Se llama Nuestra Señora de la Merced. Vamos a tener merced, mercy, misericordia por nuestros hermanos que están buscando un lugar espiritual a donde pertenecer. Gracias.
Gracias. Otras preguntas, other questions? You want through the list right now?
I have one.
Okay.
It comes from you saying that the decision for the pastor will be made sometime in March. Are we gonna, I know that there's no committee for that process, but is there a process? Or it's just like, the father is like, okay, we need a manual. What's that process? Because how do we find it?
They put my picture on the wall with a bunch of other pictures of priests and they throw a dart with the Lady Mercy's name on it, wherever the dart lands, that's the pastor.
That's what I'm afraid of.
I don't know, in normal times, when like when my term was up in and then you go into the process to, you look at the, priest looks at the various parishes that are open and applies for a parish, and the people look at the various priests that are available and kind of try and talk to one or two of the priests and, you know, see whether or not that might be the person to go there. They make their recommendations, the priest makes his recommendations, and then the cardinal and the bishops get together and make a decision. I don't know that's how this process works. I know what they're going to try and do is try and put who they think is the best priest for the situation where it's needed. So, at that point,
Priest people, you didn't tell them.
so at that point, but other than that, but again, they'll say, you know, if there's another situation, they'll say that I would be better used somewhere else. They might do that. I don't know. I have no desire to move, but I also have no control of the process. So en el proceso simplemente que normalmente la gente que necesita el párroco puede hablar con todos sus párrocos abiertos de mover y de decidir quiénes son el mejor párroco para nosotros y sugerir a la diócesis creemos este ese. Y también los sacerdotes pueden ir a las diferentes parroquias que están abiertas y elegir sus elecciones de primero, segundo, tercero. Pero ese es, no sé, más que todo yo sé que ellos van, los cardenales, los obispos, van a tratar de decidir en cualquier situación cuál es el mejor sacerdote de guiar cualquier situación, cualquier parroquia. So, es posible que ellos van a decidir quiero aquí, o ellos van a decidir me necesita en otro lugar, no sé. Completamente estoy inseguro de esto. No quiero demoverme, pero no tengo control del proceso. Ok. Ojalá que es. Charles.
I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit, if I might, if we're finished talking about sort of the pastoral aspects of the work at hand. I'd like to look at our Ray's observations about the economic aspects of what we are doing, and not so much to seek answers to observations or responses to observations or answers to questions, but mostly to put them before the committees to help them in the decisions that they will have to make. So when we listen to or look at the tables of statistics and looking at the economic statistics about Sunday collections and income and things like that, it looks like, and just using those data points, and not really knowing what financial statements are actually for the parishes of IHM and Resurrection, but we are told that those two parishes are in financial straits, that they cannot make their living. They cannot support themselves. So economically, a way of looking at that is to say that they are in receivership. So we are told that however we are formatted as a community going forward, that if one of these parish communities is assigned to us or is asked to join us, one hopes that they ask so that there's a freedom of spirit there. The question, we say, oh, well, then their assets will follow them. That's canon law. The assets follow. The patrimony follows the parishioners. So the question is, what is their debt? If indeed they can't support themselves in a way that means somehow or another the Archdiocese has been supporting. Our experience as Our Lady of Mercy Parish, when the Archdiocese helped to support us, was, and I still remember thinking how draconian it was, but they would give us the grant to cover our expenses and then absorb any of our savings accounts. In other words, so we would enter the new fiscal year with no savings. This was during the episcopate of Archbishop Francis of Chicago, may he rest in peace, but this is Don Headley, who was the sixth pastor, had to deal with, as I recall. So the question is for each of those parishes, what is their archdiocese of debt? And will that, if one of those parishes or both of those parishes has to join us, we hope, or is assigned to us, does that debt follow them? The second observation is, I know IHM had a school, and did Resurrection have a school? Are those school buildings operating economic concerns? Do they bring any income at all? Okay, so what happens to that? I know that's sort of a future-oriented question, but what happens to that income from that school, especially if there's debt? You're right, on paper it would follow the school. Okay, good. And then, if indeed, in the transition, there will be expenses to maintain the buildings, pay insurance on the buildings, especially if somehow or another there will be a Sunday Mass in each of those churches. And already we know that they're not collecting enough to support much of that. Well, Our Lady of Mercy did provide the cash flow to support those the liturgies at the other say IHM or Resurrection. Or does the Archdiocese cover those costs until the property is disposed of and then quote unquote the assets come to Our Lady of Mercy or to the community that succeeds in this new scenario? So those are observations and questions, and you say you have some answers, but you don't have to answer them.
That most of the information was given to us, and it could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, the only parish that has some debt of the four, this is an odd situation because we're not in the same situation as some of the other groupings. The only parish that has debt of the four is Resurrection, if I remember correctly, and it's only about $40,000. Is that right? It's higher than that? And then that was through like 3.6, so it's either like 360,000 or 36,000. 107,000 total. Okay, I'm sorry. So $107,000 total debt. So we're not really talking about a lot of debt in any of these places. The other thing that kind of I'm thinking this is actually none of these parishes, none of the four parishes are unable to pay their bills currently. So even though the income in IHM and Resurrection is very low, they are actually able to pay the bills that they have with the money that they have coming in. So it's not a question that they're operating at a loss. The reason things are being closed, we're looking at the money. The diocese has set a goal or a minimum of $750,000 income, and none of the other three parishes meet that $750,000 of income, and that's apart from rental income. So St. Edward's comes close, but isn't there. They're at 550,000 or so. The others are much lower, and again, they're much lower because they don't have as many paid ministers or paid staff or whatever. But so they're paying their bills, but they haven't hit that whoever came up with that magic number. That's the number that they're going by. Same thing with the number of parishioners going to church. The minimum number is 800. They could have made it 1,000, they could have made it 1,200, they could have made it 600, but the number they chose was 800, and so we're at St. Edward's, they set up 750. They're not there. It's kind of like this magic line you didn't cross it. So really, that's when we're talking about some of those things. We're really talking about an arbitrary line that was set. Canonically, when a parish closes, the books close. Canonically, they do not consider a parish having debt. And so technically there is no debt left when the parish closes, and it shouldn't be carried over. What has happened under Cardinal Cupich is that when assets are sold, then part of that asset is given back to the archdiocese to pay the debt. and I've heard different percentages. So last percentage I heard from anybody official was there was a 10%, which is really the Catholic credit card. But canonically, they're not supposed to be able to reach into a parish's assets once it's been closed. The income of the parish, including rent money, goes to the new parish. And that's, again, that's canonically, it's part of the assets of the old parish, it goes to the new parish. So that's where the income goes to. So all of those questions, as I said, some of them they're all good questions, and we have started to look at them, but we haven't looked at much. The grouping is not looked at much as the finances, because they're trying to get the group to look at the needs of the community, as opposed to looking at it from a purely numerical point of view. They're afraid that people will go back and say, you closed me because I didn't have enough money, or you closed me because I didn't have enough people at church. And what they're trying to get the group to look at and say, how can we be a better church in this area? Okay. So de traducir la pregunta, la cuestión es si las parroquias tienen una deuda, ¿qué va a pasar con esa deuda? Y en ese grupo, solamente Resurrección tiene deuda de $107,000, que no es mucho en comparación de otras deudas en la diócesis. Pero la razón para cerrar estas parroquias no es basado por la deuda de ninguna parroquia o si no puede pagar sus gastos. Todas las parroquias en este grupo pueden pagar sus gastos. Algunos no tienen muchos gastos porque no tienen muchos empleos. No hay mucho de pagar. Otros tienen empleos como nosotros y también los gastos son más grandes. La arquidiócesis ha decidido unas metas. Y primeramente con dinero, ingresos de $750,000 por año, aparte de la renta. Nosotros somos la única parroquia que sobrepasa esta meta. Los otros, San Eduardo, está cerca, pero está de $550,000. Pero no tienen deuda y pueden pagar sus gastos. Ese solamente es una meta decidido por la arquidiócesis. También la meta de los asistentes, de 800 personas que asisten a las misas dominicales. Puede decidir, pudiera decidir de 1,000, 1,200, 600, pero ellos decidieron esa es la mínima, de tener 800 personas. Aparte de esto, también las otras, San Eduardo tiene 750 personas asistiendo a las misas, fallan de pasar esa meta. Este es solamente un número. En el grupo, nosotros no estamos hablando mucho de los numerales, simplemente porque no quieren de regresar a las parroquias diciendo, la diócesis nos ha cerrado porque no tenemos suficiente dinero, no tenemos suficiente gente. Ellos quieren que nosotros estamos considerando el futuro y cómo formar una iglesia más fuerte. Y por eso nosotros tenemos las cantidades mencionadas, pero no estábamos hablando de esas cosas para enfocar nuestra discusión en otras áreas. Anybody want to add to that? No? Ya está bien. Well, Charles?
In terms of the schools, is the expectation that we become property managers, or is the expectation that when the parish is sold, the school buildings are sold? And I only raise this question just in terms of the
That's up to the pastor of the New Reality and the finance council. And again, if the school is bringing in money, you might want to be property manager of money coming in. But other property that might be there, you might want to get rid of. So it could be, or if the money in the property, like the school, is worth a lot of money to the people that are renting it and willing to buy it, you might want to sell it off. It all depends on the situation.
So basically, there's no pro forma expectation that's being met.
No, there's no pro forma expectation of what might happen. Again, I'll give you my example from when we closed St. Fidelis. When we closed the parish, the school was rented to CPS. It was a money maker, and it was hopefully going to bring money into St. Aloysius. However, a year after we got there, or 2 years after we closed St. Fidelis, CPS, for the first year, spent a lot of money fixing the place. And then the next year, they walked out of the place. So they put $1 million into the building and then just walked away from the building, which surprised me to no end. Within 6 months, we had the place rented again to a charter school, who came in and realized there were too many repairs to make, and then they walked out. And then it took me another 2 years or 3 years to actually ultimately get permission and sell the property. But in those 2 or 3 years, we spent a lot of money paying heat in a building that was hardly being used and all of that. So it became a huge loss, and the money that we thought was coming in never came. And that's one of those are some of the things that have to be considered. Are you managing property? Are you providing for ministry? So in all those areas, and that can happen even with our school. We know that CPS can tell us in December they're walking out in June, and that can be done every year. So we might have a 10-year contract, but part of that contract is they tell us in December they're walking out, they walk out the door, and that's just the way that contract is written. So, de la propiedad de la escuela, por ejemplo, si hay una expectación de la arquidiócesis para mantener la escuela, si está rentada, vamos a continuar de rentar, o vamos a cerrar o vender. Esa es la decisión del nuevo párroco y de su concilio financiero. ¿Cuál es mejor para la parroquia? Si la escuela, por ejemplo, está rentada a CPS o a otro grupo y está recibiendo ingresos por eso, está bien, gracias a Dios, ¿sí? Que tenemos ese dinero. Si no, se puede vender. No hay expectativa de la arquidiócesis que va a hacer en este caso. Cada parroquia, es diferente en esto.
También dijo lo que le había pasado en la otra iglesia, si lo puede traducir en español.
Sí, gracias, ok. So, en mi experiencia, porque yo soy la parroquia de San Fidelis para unir con San Aloysius, y ellos en ese momento tuvo su escuela rentada a CPS. Y estuvo bien, yo pensé, vamos a recibir la renta de ellos y vamos a tener este dinero para usar en el ministerio de la parroquia. Y CPS pasó más de $1 millón reparando el edificio en el primer año. Gracias a Dios, está bien. Pero en el segundo año ellos decidieron de salir y quitó todo. Y yo no tuve nada de la renta. Pues en 6 meses encontré otra escuela de charter school que pudieron rentar con nosotros y empezar. Y después de venir, ellos decidieron que los gastos de reparar el edificio para su uso eran grandes y no quisieron de continuar. Y por 2 años más, la escuela fue vacía, ninguna renta, y yo no debía de pagar los gastos de calefacción y de la luz por un edificio que no usábamos mucho. Finalmente recibimos permiso de vender esto y vendemos por mucho dinero que nos dio dinero suficiente para construir un nuevo centro para la parroquia. Pero es estas cosas que tienen en un momento tienen dinero y en otro momento no tienen. Depende de la suerte, ¿sí? O de los vientos. Otra pregunta? Any other questions? But ultimately, Charles, you're right. One of the things that the whole committee has to look at is when they look at the decision, is it viable? Is the new formation going to be financially viable too? And are there enough people to make it work? So parte del comentario de Charles es que cuando el comité decide de cualquier opción de presentar, es si es viable que hay suficiente dinero de esta nueva configuración para mantener o para tener una parroquia, y si hay suficiente gente para proveer por esta parroquia, proveer los ministerios. So, esa es parte de la consideración que necesitan de considerar. En estos momentos no hemos hablado de esto todavía, pero estamos empezando de hablar de estas cosas. Antes de todo de la comunidad y de la iglesia, pero cuando necesitamos acceder, debemos de considerar la economía de cualquier situación. So right now they're just beginning to look at those numbers because in the past they were looking at the strength of the church or making a strong church. But whatever decision is made, they are going to have to say, yes, this will work financially, and there will be enough people going to this parish that will make it work. And we already talked about, we've already mentioned in our meetings that we have to expect not everybody to come. So if there's 800 people coming now, we know we're going to lose at least 20%, maybe 25 or more percent. So let's say 600 people will go. So we don't look at the October count and say 800 plus 400 is 1,200. That's plenty. No, it really be more like 600 plus 300, and now we're just barely over the top. So cuando consideramos el número de los asistentes, necesitamos tener en mente que 20% o 25% de la gente no va a ir a la nueva parroquia. Por eso necesitamos considerar si una parroquia tiene 800 personas en la cuenta, probablemente 600 va a participar. So, cuando estamos considerando si unimos estas parroquias de 800 y 400, no será de 1200, será una parroquia de 900, algo como así. Out in Zoom land? Anybody? ¿En la tierra de Zoom? ¿Tienen preguntas? John O'Connor, you have to unmic yourself if you want to.
Okay, I'm not on now. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the work that the committee has done here. And it's really a difficult task to get a handle on. Obviously, when life hands you lemons, you got to make a lemonade. So we got to do something about this, obviously. And we have to approach this with as much grace and prayer and thought and enlightenment as possible. Looking at some of the scenarios, I mean, I don't know some of these other parishes. I don't know really what their makeup is. Some of the stats that were flashed across it's hard to get your handle on them immediately. But it seems to me that we're going to have to do something as far as a merger with at least one other parish. And it seemed to me, just looking at those options, that the last one probably has made the most sense. I don't think Edwards can survive on their own. I think that's the first thing that I'm looking, just raw numbers. So I think Edwards is going to have to merge with somebody else. And it seems to me that the seventh option, the one where we're merging with I think Resurrection, and the other one merged with Edwards, seems to make the most sense to me. And like I know that and a dime will get you a Coke, as my father used to say. But I think that's probably the best thing is we're gonna have to roll the dice and pray on a solution. We're gonna have to embrace something and probably embrace it as strong as possible if we're gonna have any success of getting it accepted at all.
Thank you. So John mencionó que alguna de la información que ha recibido está rápido y no puede entender todo, no puede abrazar toda la información que estamos pasando a la vez. Pero según su opinión, él miraba las cosas y piensa que la opción 7 es la mejor porque él piensa que San Eduardo no puede mantenerse por sí mismo y necesita tener ayuda. Y la opción 7, donde Resurrección con nosotros, con el corazón con San Eduardo, es la mejor simplemente para ayudar a San Eduardo. Y también necesitamos hacer algo. Es importante, no es posible de simplemente de continuar, pero debemos de hacer algo y cierta opción. Y él dijo que esta opinión y 10 centavos puede comprar una coca así. Otra, Charles, you have one more back there?
Shifting gears a little bit and looking forward, at what point obviously probably in January, but at what point do we turn to the community that will be coming with us and ask them what is it that you hope for when you come with us? And what is it that we can do to be with you? And so I put those questions out there again so that the committee can, think about that, but also so that we as a parish can start orienting ourselves to an openness that will allow the kind of charismatic approach that we had in 1977, even though at that time we didn't know it.
Pues en cualquier momento cuando hace la decisión, cuando vamos a pedir de la otra comunidad qué necesita, qué quiere reunirse con nosotros y cómo podemos ayudarles a hacer esta unidad. Y continuar en el carisma de la bienvenida que empezamos en 1977. Lo más pronto posible, ¿no? As soon as we can. I mean, it's one of the things I already started talking about it in homilies and things. To say we need to be this kind of community to welcome. But lo más pronto posible que yo empecé a mencionar en mis homilías y todo, cuál tipo de comunidad necesitamos ser. Y también en mis artículos, en el boletín, on bulletin articles as well. ¿Algo más? Anything else?
I have a couple comments.
Sure.
First of all, Father Nick and Ben and Deacon Bob and the committee, I want to thank you and congratulate you for the many hours and all the work, because I know this is a lot of work to do. And I know that whatever decision is made, we will accept it with God's grace. And I did review the scenarios, and I personally did eliminate the first scenario and number 6 because I didn't think they were feasible. And I think Father Nick in the beginning alluded to distance of one of the churches. I didn't get a chance to visit the area of all of the other 3, but I tried to map them on my own. And just my experience with mergers, school mergers, one of the biggest challenges is the loss of population. So in the final decision, perhaps consider or reconsider, I know you probably have already looked at some of this, but the distance, because people will usually act upon convenience, but hopefully, their faith will be stronger and they will still travel to whatever parish they belong to in order to attend. But that is one of the challenges with mergers, the distance and the loss of population. And I'll say it in Spanish. Quería felicitar al grupo, especialmente el grupo de Nuestra Merced, que ha trabajado muchas horas y han hecho mucho trabajo en venir y pedir nuestra opinión, y estoy segura que con la gracia de Dios vamos a aceptar la propuesta final. Mi única experiencia con juntar locales es la pérdida de gente, especialmente cuando juntamos parroquias o escuelas, y les pido que consideren la distancia, porque posiblemente algunas personas dejen de asistir a misa o los eventos por distancia, y ojalá que no lo hagan, que su fe sea tan grande para que sigan viajando, no importa qué tan lejos quede la parroquia donde pertenece. So again, congratulations. Thank you for representing us, and thank you for putting all of this together for our churches.
Thank you. Any final comments? Comentarios finales.
¿Sí? Who was the last speaker?
Flavia.
Yes, Flavia Hernandez.
Thank you.
Lo voy a decir primero en español. Una de las cosas bien importantes que quede bien claro es de que esto no se hace por votación, porque si fuera por votación, creo que la Merced ganaría, ¿verdad? Pero no es una competencia, no es una votación, y lo digo porque esta mañana, fue ayer cuando se mandó el mensaje, y hubo una persona que dice, lamentablemente no voy a poder estar en la reunión a través de Zoom, pero yo doy mi voto por el 7. Sí. Y no estamos recibiendo votos. Esto no es voto. Eso nos quedó bien claro desde el principio que no hay votación. Entonces, no podemos votar, aunque nos gustaría, pero no podemos.
Okay, I'm gonna guess what Rita said. Oh, yes. No, I think I get it. Just you can tell me if I'm wrong. So it is important. It's tempting to think of this as a voting process, but it's not a voting process. Is the simple truth. We are convened as a group of 5 with 3 other parishes, so it's a group of 20, along with the pastors, and we try to come to a consensus for a recommendation to the Archdiocese. And so this session is to even expand that thought process, to try to bring in the feedback of all of parishioners, to try to get as thoughtful a response, as thoughtful a proposal as we can get. And so thank you for participating in that. And then the best we can do is try to come up with what we think is the best solution for the entire grouping and for the church in our area. And then hope that, hope that what comes out of it is indeed the best scenario. And so that's sort of where we are. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, not even the 5 of us can vote. I mean, we can decide, we picked up scenario 7. It looks the best for us, but that is not for us to choose. So somebody else is going to decide which one is going to work the best for a community. So ni nosotros 5 podemos votar. So, hemos escogido el escenario 7, se ve que es el más el que puede funcionar para la comunidad aquí, para las demás parroquias. No queremos que ninguno se cierre, por supuesto, ¿verdad? Queremos que todos estén trabajando, porque creo que todos tenemos el derecho de asistir a misa el domingo, ¿verdad? Y no nos gustaría que ninguno se cierre, pero la decisión no es nuestra, sino que es del arzobispo de la Diócesis de Chicago.
El 13 de este mes, nosotros, los 5, vamos a reunirnos con los comités de las 3 otras parroquias. No como comité de la Merced, comité de resurrección, sino como 20 feligreses de 4 comunidades. Vamos a hablar de lo que pasó en nuestras reuniones parroquiales y vamos a hablar de los escenarios que pensamos del primero, del segundo, hasta el séptimo. Next week on the 13th, we get together, the 5 of us, with our counterparts from the other 3 parishes. But we don't sit like this. One table for mercy, one table for res, one for IHM. We sit down as 20 people from 4 different parishes, looking at the same scenarios and talking about what happened in our own meetings like this. And then we say, okay, based on everything we've heard, what do we think? And we go through the scenarios one by one. And that is going to be where the pain starts. Y en ese momento empezará la pena, el dolor. It has to. Everyone will change. Toda parroquia se va a cambiar de una manera u otra. Pero we can do this. We're merciful.
Okay, I want to thank everyone. We've got a closing prayer. I put it up on the screen for Zoom that you can see. This is the Renew My Church prayer. And we've got the Spanish version because we did English first. And I do want to mention to everybody that we do have, we sent out the financial report in the bulletin this past weekend. So hopefully look at that. That's our financial report from the parish for this past year, which obviously we got greatly affected by COVID, as everybody did. But hopefully, and we shortened it a little bit to get some of the fluff out, but keep all the information you need to have in there. So please check through it. Quisiera mencionar que mandamos el informe financiero de la parroquia, de la mayoría de la parroquia por este año pasado, que concluyó el fin de junio. Sí, fuimos afectados mucho por COVID, como todos, pero ese reporte cortábamos un poquito con otra información, pero tenemos la información más importante de las finanzas y también los sacramentos y cómo de continuar proveer por nuestra comunidad y de crecer en nuestra espiritualidad. Y tenemos esta oración. Y tenemos esta oración de una nueva mi iglesia y hay una pregunta final. Liliana.
Sí, padre. Buenas noches y quiero a todos agradecerles por lo que están haciendo. Están tomando una iniciativa muy grande a todos del comité, padre, y a todas las personas. Mi única sugerencia o pregunta sería que sería posible que, no sé si es que es una buena idea, de minimizar todas estas opciones haciendo como un mes para que, o sea, los feligreses muestren iniciativas digamos, de lo que realmente va a pasar, porque como yo feligresa, a veces si no veo la iglesia cerrada o si no veo, ahí es cuando digo, oh, ¿qué pasó? ¿Por qué no fui a las reuniones y eso? Entonces para mi pensamiento no sería iniciar el proceso, por ejemplo, un mes de hacer la sección 1 o otro mes para que así los feligreses que sepan la acción que va a pasar y para que así todos tengamos, digamos, ya que veamos la realidad más que todo. No sé si es que soy clara, o sea, si es que antes de, o sea, ya ve que dice ustedes que va a tomar hasta enero o marzo la decisión del cardenal. tenemos este tiempo para poder concientizar a todos los feligreses de lo que va a pasar en las iglesias. Entonces, como que digo, si es que más que todos los hispanos, nosotros somos, si es que no se cierra la puerta, ahí es cuando nos asustamos. Esa es mi pequeña sugerencia, si es que o una semana o 2 semanas que hagamos la opción 1 y entonces y así puedan tomar conciencia y mirar qué es realmente lo que va a pasar. Porque para mí también las iglesias, y veo que están más cerca, la que está más lejos es la resurrección, que yo pienso que va a tener más efecto de las demás iglesias, si se llegara a cerrar.
Más que todo, nosotros presentamos hace 3 semanas aquí y también tenemos en el sitio de internet, tenemos en Facebook y tenemos en el boletín. So, estamos hablando con la gente aquí. No sé qué pasa con nosotros propios porque cada párroco tiene la obligación, la responsabilidad de comunicar con su gente. So, as I understood most of the question. Yeah. So my understanding is that she wanted us to talk, and we use this time more to present each scenario. What we've done that 3 weekends in a row, and we've also put it in the bulletin. We have it on Facebook. We have it on the parish website. The information is out there. In other parishes, I don't know what the other pastors are doing. That each pastor has a responsibility to communicate with their people all of this information. I think I'm doing as much communicating as we can on this. And again, as soon as the decisions are made or as soon as we know where we're going, we'll keep communicating. So once the committee meets or once we have a proposal, we'll let you know what the proposal is. You know, we know that everybody's saying 7, or it seems like everybody's saying 7 here. But we'll let you know what the committee comes up with and what proposal they're making as soon as we can do that. So we're not keeping secrets ourselves. We're trying to be as open with everything as possible and communicate as much as possible. No queremos quedar secretos de la gente, estamos abiertos con todo lo que podemos decir a todos y cuando encontramos o cuando está decidido cuál es la sugerencia al cardenal, vamos a presentar también a ustedes que ustedes sepan. La mayoría de ustedes están de acuerdo con opción 7. Pero cuando está decidido, vamos a presentar, avisarles que esa es la decisión y por qué, y esperamos la decisión. Nosotros vamos a comunicar lo más rápido y completamente posible. Hay gente que puede decir 100 veces y no escucha. Sí, es verdad. Es como cuando los padres hablan con sus hijos. ¿Cuántas veces necesita decir lo mismo hasta que ellos se pasen? We can say something 100 times and 100 times they won't listen. It's just like parents when they tell their children, do this, and how often do you have to tell them until they actually do it? So it all depends on where people are at. So if we could pray this together, si podemos orar este voto. Señor Jesús, nos hablas el día de hoy, igual que les hablaste a hombres y mujeres santos que nos precedieron. En cada época, en nuestro propio tiempo, nos llamas y nos dices, renueva mi iglesia. Derrama sobre nosotros el don de tu Espíritu Santo y de ese modo permítanos escucharte claramente, escucharnos unos a otros con atención, imaginar nuestro futuro con audacia, discernir tus indicaciones sabiamente, perseverar en tu santa voluntad con valor, permanecer juntos en la claridad, entregar sin reparos nuestros propios planes, adoptar el bien común, transmitir tus dones a las generaciones futuras. Permítanos permanecer en la compañía de Santa de la Virgen María, los apóstoles y todos los santos, que su ejemplo, su presencia nos inspire en confianza paciente en la obra de tu gracia. Pero venimos aquí que vives y reinas con el Padre y unidad del Espíritu Santo, un solo Dios, por los siglos de los siglos. Amén. Buenas noches a todos. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Buenas
Muchas
noches.
gracias.
Buenas
Ay, gracias. Chao. Chao.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
Kathy and Mike.
Bye, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Chao.
Chao.
Bye.